where champions are made.
The following breakdown is for the Grade 2 Fairground Oaks on March 23rd, 2024 at 6:42. That is post time. The distance is 1 mile and a 16th on the dirt for 3-year-old fillies. And always, just as a reminder for a disclaimer, this content is for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute gambling advice. Viewers should conduct their own research and seek professional advice before making any financial decisions based on the information provided. So let's get right into it. Number 1 is Vivi's Dream by sire Mitole. She has 2 wins in her 6 starts. Several of those are in the top 3. She finished 5th in her last outing against similar competition that's going to be in this Fairgrounds Grade 2, and she did not fare well against them. So I'm not really giving her a good chance. I actually break my analysis down to 5 separate categories for each horse. I have a box for did the horse break well, if they're a front runner, did they set a decent pace, or did they contend with the pace? If they're a closer or mid-pack runner, did the do they preserve energy? When it comes to the stretch run, was there a challenge? Was the horse competitive? Did the horse drop out? And what was the horse's finishing result? And I essentially have a point set up to determine the total number of prediction points that I kind of use to determine where I think a horse will finish. So for Vivi's Dream, I gave her 4 points, which is not a lot. She pretty much hit middle of the row with points, or she did not actually get any. So to me, I just think she's a little bit outclassed. And again, she didn't do well against, I think, 3 other fillies in this exact race back at the Grade 2 Rachel Alexandria, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm not giving Vivi's Dream much of a chance. Number 2 is Midsummer's March by Mendel's John. She has 1 win in her first 2 starts. She broke well. She definitely contended with the pace at the front, and she was competitive in the end, and it ended up giving her the first place finish here. She responded well to everything in the race, really. I couldn't really critique anything. I thought she broke well, and again, did everything else that you needed a horse to do to win the race the way she did. So I have her currently as my number 3 pick on the board. I gave her a total of 11 prediction points. So she so far is number 3. I'll obviously show you guys to my other picks, but I'm expecting her to have a good chance to show. So move on to the 3 horse next. Number 3 is Alpine Princess by sire Classic Empire. She has 3 wins in 7 lifetime starts. I gave her 4 prediction points, which was the same as Vivi's Dream, the number 1 horse. I didn't see anything from her that inspired me in any way. I think she's pretty outclassed here, and I don't suspect that she'll be anywhere near the front, especially once we hit the stretch. I think she'll be ready to have called it a day by that point. So Alpine Princess, I'm not even considering, and I wouldn't really look at her too much. Number 4, Lucy Got Game by sire Vino Rosso. 1 win in 2 lifetime starts. I gave her 11 prediction points, which is the same as the number 2 horse that I talked about earlier, which is Midsummer's March. So here for Lucy Got Game, she broke well. She definitely contended with the pace at the front. She was extremely competitive in the end of the race. And again, similar to Midsummer's March, she pretty much responded to everything. In fact, several of the fillies I picked in this race, they all won their races in a very similar fashion, winning in the front by at least 2 lengths or more. At least 5 of my picks here all finished their races pretty much like that. So I actually think this race overall is pretty competitive, and I should have said that earlier, but I think it's wide open. I think there's actually like 5 qualified fillies that all have a chance to fairly win this race. So I think it should be fun and exciting for sure. And I see some speed here, so I think that's a little bit more exciting than the Tampa Bay Downs, a week or 2 back. I didn't think the pace was too hot, and it ended up being an interesting race in the end, but it just never seemed like it was really going anywhere. And I was glad to see that at least other people as well, here on YouTube also kind of had similar thoughts. So again, I'm really hoping with the real competition here and the quality of fillies, 3-year-old fillies, I suspect that this will actually be a really good, give us good foresight as to who may have a chance to really kind of spring forward as we get closer to the Kentucky Derby, the Kentucky Oaks during the Derby weekend, since obviously 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 of these fillies fillies could end up being in that Kentucky Oaks race once we get to that first week of May. So again, Lucy got game. She is currently my second pick. I think she is definitely a horse to contend with, and she seems okay with running with a moderate pace. So I think that suits her well as my second pick. The 5-horse Tarifa by Bernardini. Gave her 11 points in this race as well. She is 3 wins and 4 lifetime starts. She is also my second pick, technically. Well, she's one of my number 2 picks. And again, I had similar notes for her. She won against similar competition. And again, she has 3 wins and 4 starts. So she's on a pretty good streak there. And again, she's one of those fillies that finished in the front by the end of it by at least about a length and a half to 2 lengths. So a lot of really decent preceder to front runners here, kind of that first and second leg of the bunch. I think we have a lot of those. So again, I suspect the pace will be very fast, and I'm hoping that it is. I think this is exciting, especially being a grade 2. This should be the quality of field we should suspect to get here. And obviously the horse that wins should be able to take that next step up to really be looking at a serious potential grade 1 contender, again, as we head closer to the Kentucky Derby. So I like this filly a lot. I think she has as well of a chance as some of the others that I have selected for my picks. Again, number 2, Midsummer March is one of my picks. I also liked number 6, Intricate, which we'll cover next. I also like the 7-horse, Our Pretty Woman, and also the 8-horse, Accommodate Ava. Like I said, it's a pretty wide open race here, so we'll move on to the 6. Number 6, Intricate by Sire Gun Runner. This horse finished with 8 prediction points, and the horse did break well, ran kind of towards the mid-pack, kind of settled in there. Could not really challenge in the end, couldn't find that extra gear, but was a solid finisher. I believe she finished in second place in her last outing. So she wasn't bad, but she just didn't have enough to catch the horse and ended up finishing in first. So she's my 4th prediction here, Intricate. So if I were doing like a superfecta, she's a horse I might want to kind of consider for that. You know what I mean? Because I don't think she'll actually finish in the top 3, but I think depending on what happens to the other, 3 or 4 horses towards the end of that race, I still think she might have a chance to maybe finish in 4th if she's fortunate. So that's where I have the 6-horse Intricate. Number 7, Our Pretty Woman by Sire Medalladoro. She's actually my number 1 selection in this race. I'm kind of surprised that she doesn't seem to be as high up on maybe some other people's list, but I gave her the most prediction points I could give a horse. She went gate to wire in very impressive form. She never seemed to be in any real threat of losing the lead or having any serious contender. I really felt like once she took the lead at the front, she settled in. You could tell she was pacing. She had good rhythm. She just didn't seem to be in any form of stress or anxiety or worry. So as soon as it was time for her to kind of go on the stretch, I mean, she was able to really pull away, and the other horses really didn't have a response for her. And I think she looked the most impressive because, again, she's the only horse in this entire field that went gate to wire in her finish against relatively decent competition, but she completely blew them away. So I was very, very impressed with her effort. And again, she's my number 1 pick. I think if she can do that in her previous race, I think she has a good chance to take advantage of the pace. She seems like she wants to go towards the front. And again, I saw a horse that seemed to have a good set of lungs on her. So I think her endurance may be a little bit better at this point in her career compared to the other 3-year-old she's working with. Maybe they're a little bit more developed. So I'm looking at her to actually go for that lead and hopefully try to contend for the front. I think if she can do that, she'll be a really game horse and probably one of the hardest to beat. But still, I'm taking a chance and saying she is my first pick selection. And last but not least, we'll go to the 8. And last but not least, number 8, Accommodava. I love the name, by the way, by Sire Munnings. This filly is 3 wins and 8 lifetime starts. She actually finished with 10 prediction points, and she's actually tied in second place for my selections. And at the end of this video, I will give you guys my total top to bottom selections just to make it more clear. But like I said, she finished with 10 total prediction points. She didn't break awfully well. It wasn't great, but again, she kind of got bumped around. She didn't really seem to adjust to that too well. She did obviously have to settle in towards the back as a result of that, but she obviously eventually got to moving up as we approached, more than halfway through the race and hit that 3/4 pole. So she was competitive in the end. She was game. She wins her race, and she won it very impressively with authority over a muddy track. So again, I have her tied for my second selection. Technically, I almost wanted to put her as my first selection as well, but again, as I've been repeating, I really think this is a pretty competitive grade 2 here that's relatively wide open to at least 5 of the 8 fillies. So I really think it could swing anyway, but I had her as my second selection. So that wraps up my breakdown of the entire field. So the HRG predictions here are the 7 are Pretty Woman, the 8 and 5 tied for second here with Accommodeva and Lucy Got Game, third Midsummer March, and fourth Intricate. So I'm going 7, 8, 5, 2, 6. That's kind of how I could see this race playing out again. I really do think our Pretty Woman should take advantage of the lead. I'd be surprised if she was settled, back off of it. But she seemed like the most aggressive and alert horse ready to take the front out of any of the fillies in this field. So that's kind of what I'm expecting that she'll do. And I think, again, if she does that, she can control the pace. I think she's going to be the horse to beat at the end. She seemed very game, and she was very, very relaxed as she crossed the line. Again, Accommodeva, I also could have really kind of taken a chance on and saying that I could also see her having a good outing again. She did that on a muddy track. Now, there's always a chance maybe a drier surface may not agree with her as much. I know horses are very quirky like that, right? Where sometimes it's, the opposite. So I put her as a solid second just because, again, her last outing and her last win, as impressive as it was over a muddy track, So I want to see what she'll do against this competition. If it's not muddy, again, if we have drier conditions, I'm just kind of wondering how she'll respond to that. Because I know some horses may not always bounce back from a muddy win or a muddy track and then get back onto a drier surface. And, like I said, they're quirky. So her and Lucy Got Game, pretty much kind of the same deal without the muddy track incident. Thought she looked really well, in her last outing. And I do hope to see her, obviously, in the top 3. The 2 Midsummer March, I talked about her earlier. I could definitely see her still finishing somewhere in the money. Again, she's only 1 for 2 in her lifetime starts, but she did finish on my list, I think, with a total of 11 points, which was pretty good. And she responded to pretty much everything well in her race as well, that she ended up securing a victory. So we do have a lot of fillies with multiple wins under their belt. So again, I think this is a competitive field, and I'm really excited because, again, one of these fillies, whether we know it or not, could end up being a contender in the Kentucky Oaks, or maybe even better than that, right? Like, some of these horses are still kind of finding their form, right? Despite having a couple, races and some wins under their belt, they're still gearing up for that Kentucky Derby shape. Every filly is, same for the colts. So we still may, have time to really witness something special here. And this could be a starting point for one of the fillies on their journey to the Kentucky Oaks, and we can maybe see something unfold there. So that's my breakdown here for the Grade 2 Fairground Oaks. Really looking forward to it, and I'm excited to see which of these fillies are going to try to take that next step towards the Kentucky Oaks. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below if you would like to do so. Thank you all for the support as always, and I will see you at the Grade 2 Fairground Oaks. Goodbye.